Hey A&Pers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P 1, Lab 1, Video 4. So we are here with the organs, and we are in A&P 1, Lab 1. I already said that. Yeah, I already said that part. Okay, so I'm on page 7 of the green booklet, but trying to work in the end of page 6 while I do it. So here we have the brain, and there's a tiny little bit of spinal cord showing on the bottom of that, and you can see more of it on the big torso person, but I'm not going to stand up and walk over there right now. So here are some more organs. This one is a liver. This liver colored organ is called a liver. Underneath it you can see the gallbladder. And we do need both words, gallbladder. Just calling it the bladder is not enough for credit. Okay, this one is the stomach. This is a plastic model of a stomach. Here's what the inside looks like. For A&P 2, we will come back and learn all of these terms and these and that and this and that and that and that and that. Yeah. But for now, oh look, it's a liver and a gallbladder. Excellent. And this one's a stomach. Yeah, it's a stomach. Okay, cool. We're good. So these are all in the abdominal region. Now this is going to be your small intestine, and this one going around is your large intestine. This one comes off, and this one comes off. Okay. So the stomach actually right here attaches to the beginning of the small intestine. The small intestine wraps around the head of the pancreas. So this seafoam green hideousness here is the pancreas. And this color is arbitrary. It'll be different on every brand of model. This one just happens to be hideous. The liver, however, is always this liver color because it's a highly vascular organ. That's just what it looks like. And this gallbladder is always going to be green because it contains bile, which is made by the liver, and it just is green. So these colors will stay. All the rest of the colors are arbitrary, which means, you know, whatever. Just make up your own. So here, the small intestine, here's the end of the small intestine. This hooks onto here, like that. Okay. So this is the beginning of the small intestine around the pancreas, and then the small intestine continues here, and then right there, you see that green circle? Yeah, continues here. So this is the very last chunk of small intestine, and here's the beginning of the large intestine. So where the small intestine meets the large intestine, we have the appendix. There you go. There's your appendix. And then, of course, the large intestine, which ends at your anus, and that's where the food waste leaves the body as feces. That's right, I said it, feces. Yep, you're just gonna have to deal with it. Okay, so these are from the same model, the plastic lungs. So the left lung, which I can tell because of this cardiac notch. And this is part of the right lung. The other part was in the trunk model that we looked at earlier. So underneath the lung right here is the diaphragm. Do you remember how to spell diaphragm? That's right, D-I-A-P-H-R-A-G-M, and with the G being the sneaky silent letter on this muscle. This organ right here is going to be your spleen. I don't remember if it's on your list or not, but there it is, spleen. Okay, and then I think I have the same models, but from the same organs, but from the little muscle people that stand up in the corners of the room. So this is a brain. And then we have the left and right. And then we have the lungs. Liver with the gallbladder stomach. Folds inside. That's so it can get bigger when you eat Thanksgiving dinner. Excuse me. The stomach connects to the small intestine, the first part of which wraps around the head of the pancreas. And then the small intestine, let's see, it hooks in like this. Small intestine continues through here. This is the rest of the small intestine. And this is your large intestine. And where the small intestine and the large intestine meet, you find the appendix. Excellent. And this one is a heart. So this is what your heart actually looks like. Thanks, the Valentine's Day heart are not what your heart looks like. This will be the front. And I forgot to grab it back. So we need to finish the serous membranes. We did say that each serous membrane has a double layer, a deep visceral layer, and superficial to that, a parietal layer. So touching the heart, well, the whole serous membrane surrounding the heart, the double-layered serous membrane surrounding the heart is called the pericardium. Peri means around, cardio means heart. So that's a double-layered membrane, and the inner layer, the deep layer touching the heart itself, is the visceral pericardium. And then the superficial layer surrounding that is the parietal pericardium. And the reason for this whole thing is that the heart changes size and shape roughly 75 times a minute. And if it changed, the potential is for causing friction burns on the organs around it. So between the visceral pericardium and the parietal pericardium is the technical pericardial cavity, pericardial space. And in that cavity is the pericardial fluid, one of the serous fluid. And that is to reduce friction so that as this heart beats to pump blood 75 times a minute, that it does not cause friction burns in the tissues around it. And the tissues around it, of course, would be the lungs. Now, each lung is has its own serous membrane called a pleura. So the inner layer of the pleura touching the lung itself is the visceral pleura, and superficial to that is the parietal pleura. Did I warn you about all the P's in this section? Like everything in this section starts with a P except for the word visceral, it sucks. Yeah, sorry about that. So between the visceral pleura and the parietal pleura is the technical pleural cavity with the pleural fluid, the serous fluid, which is to reduce friction because these lungs change size and shape roughly 16 times a minute. So this is the right lung. Surrounding the right lung is the right pleural cavity. Here's a left lung surrounding, no, that's the other half of the right lung. That's why it looked weird. I grabbed the same lung. Do I have another lung? Here, just grab the other model. This one's the left. It's like, yeah, then it makes sense. Okay, so here the right lung has 3 lobes and the left lung only has 2, but we'll do that next semester. So here on the left lung is the left pleural cavity. Touching the lung itself is the visceral pleura. Superficial to that is the parietal pleura. In between is the technical pleural cavity. Yes, I know. And that contains the pleural fluid, also called serous fluid, and that's to reduce friction because roughly 16 times a minute, this lung will change size and shape as you inhale and exhale. And the peritoneum or peritoneum will surround the organs most of the organs in the abdominopelvic cavity. And the layer touching the organs themselves is the visceral peritoneum, but in a plot twist, the parietal peritoneum actually lines the inside of the body wall. So you remember our, here. Oh, I've got one right here. Okay, so The visceral peritoneum lines these organs, and the parietal peritoneum lines the inside of the body wall. I'll talk more about that next semester. We also need to know that the kidneys are retroperitoneal. So that means they are behind the peritoneal cavity, that the parietal peritoneum sits here, and these don't have a peritoneum surrounding them. They'll have a fibrous capsule, but again, more on that next semester. The urinary bladder is infraperitoneal, infra for inferior to, and we need to add this term to our list if you're in my group. Infra. Peritoneal, infraperitoneal. That means inferior to the peritoneum, and that will include things like the urinary bladder, the uterus, the ovaries, whereas the kidneys and actually also the pancreas will be retroperitoneal. See this right here will be your peritoneum. So retroperitoneal. Okay, so did we cover all of the organs? We're past 10 minutes. Urinary bladder, or couple we didn't cover. Okay, well, let's find the organs in our little lady quickly before we move on to the next. So here we have the left lung, right lung, heart, diaphragm, that little pink stripe right here, liver. This little green bit will be your gallbladder. The gallbladder is not visible from the front. They did this because this isn't a model. You can take out the inside. So this will be your stomach. Back here in the corner is the spleen. Under the stomach is the pancreas, which again would not be visible from the front IRL, but you know, this way you can see it. And then of course the small intestine surrounded by large intestine. And the brain case doesn't open to see the brain. Okay, so quick question. Everything above this diaphragm is what body cavity? Thoracic body cavity. And then what's the body cavity holding each of the lungs? The pleural body cavity. The region between the two lungs? Mediastinum. And it contains what body cavity? The pericardium. And then from the diaphragm all the way down to the pubic bone is the, I know it's not a bone, it's two bones that come together to fibrocartilaginous joint, but we haven't done the skeleton yet, so we'll call it the pubic bone for now. This is the abdominopelvic region. These two iliac crests here show the beginning of the pelvis. So from the diaphragm to the iliac crests is the abdominal region, and below, inside the bony pelvis, is the pelvic region. And the peritoneal cavity, again, contains most of the organs in the abdominal region and some of the organs in the pelvic region. If it's behind the peritoneal membrane, then it's retroperitoneal, things like the kidneys and the pancreas. And if it's below the peritoneum, then it is infraperitoneal, like the uterus, ovaries, and urinary bladder. All right, we're way past 10 minutes now. I'll quit. So this has been Dr. Jones checking in with A&P 1, Lab 1, Video 4. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J out.